All right, let's get ready for week 3 of What Did Prince Do This Week? As you can see, I am all by my lonesome, but that's okay because I am not alone. I have all of you here with me today, and we had Cassandra Bradley first in the chat 3 consecutive weeks in a row. We got Nick Feldon from Denver. We got April from freezing Tampa. And Cassandra is saying that she might need to buy that white Prince Parker from the Prince store. Has anyone bought any of the jackets from the Prince store? I want to know, like the Parkers and all that. We got Dorothy Edwards in the house, Purple Prince family. We got Christina from Minneapolis, where it's so cold it keeps the bad people out. We got Realign the DJ. Good day, Purple fam. For another groovy week of What Did Prince Do This Week, we got Lee Christian from the UK. Still much warmer here in the UK. We also got Anisha. We got Raywin. Welcome. We got Chris Bornia. We got, I love more Raywin with the purple hearts. We got Tanja. Cold and snowy from DC, and we got TP. We got Man Ray. This is one of my favorite parts here. We're gonna vibe out for just a hot second. Thank you so much, Audria. Yes, it's Single Ladies Saturday. Yes. But we're going to have a good time anyway. Yes. Christina has found their own copy of Times Square. You got to have it. Bam, where's my camera? There you go. This is what we planned. This is what you need. Oh my God. I have friends, and I got the kind of friends I could just call up, go, help me. And so I am thrilled that I will not be alone because C. Lee is with me today. How are you this day, C. Lee?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound fantastic. Thank you so much.
Look, no problem. My grandson says good morning. I was literally coming from dropping him off. He has a NAACP youth meeting today.
Yeah.
So I said, he said, well, he called you. He said, tell Miss Prince Lady. I said, hey. So he wanted me to say, tell Miss Prince Lady. I said, hey. So Joshua said to Miss Prince Lady, hey.
Tell Joshua I said thank you so much for that howdy. It means so much coming from a fellow Southerner because I'm Miss South. So I take my Miss Prince Lady from Joshua. All right. Now I feel so much better because I was like, I don't like being alone doing this. Thank you so much, Mila. Oh, yes. Thank you. I got Mono Neon. I'm wearing this for Kim. This is for you, Kim. Because Kim is all about the teas. Yeah. I should put it on a shirt. Yeah. I like that, Miss Prince Lady. I think that's a good thing to do. Thank you so much, JJ Loves Prince.
What's up, JJ Loves Prince?
And Vanessa and Kim. Yes, it's very hard, Tanja, to find the vinyl to Times Square, but do not give up your search because you got to have it on vinyl. Yes, because it's an amazing album. Oh, I miss Ricky. What's up, Ricky?
What's up, brother Wyatt? My HBCU brother.
Yes, and Ricky knows what's up. This is Madhouse 17 as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, this is version 1 for me. I know it's not technically, but it is for me. Yes. And look at Rhonda. If I had some like a gift or a prize to give out, Rhonda Nicole would get that prize because yesterday was Eric Lee's birthday. So we're playing this for Eric Lee's birthday. But as you know, we play Eric Lee's every week pretty much. But I wanted to play one of my favorite Eric Lee songs on the day after his birthday. And yes, Nick, we got to give a shout out to George Clinton getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We got to.
Can you highlight somebody?
Sure.
Highlight Sadiq Khalid.
Let's see.
I want everybody. This brother here is originally from New Orleans. He is one of the greatest poets ever to walk the face of the earth. He's made the transition to being a great photographer. And if you guys remember, and he's going to kill me for doing this, but it's one of the ways you can expose yourself to his work. If you remember the HBO series, Deaf Poetry Jam, Sadiq Khalid is a deaf poet. Now, I'm in the actual anthology along with Khalid. So that was the actual, a lot of people don't know, that was the HBO television series, Deaf Poetry Jam, and then there's an anthology. So I actually have a poem in the anthology with brother Sadiq Khalid from New Orleans, Louisiana. We used to run around in the 90s together reading poetry. That is a phenomenal poet and photographer. Go check out his website. When I saw him, man, you taking me back to the 90s saying, that's like you said, my brother. That's my brother. And I'll end on this, Prof. Duff. This is kudos to how great my wife can cook. Sadiq is a vegetarian. My wife made Sadiq a vegetarian hamburger, and to this day, he still thinks my wife cooked him some meat. That's how great a cook my wife is. That's it. I'll shut up.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Yes. And there's a lot of Sadi fans in the house. And yes, George got his star on the Walk of Fame. And I loved this comment. He can funk. Basically referencing one of my favorite collaborations of George Clinton and Prince, We Can Funk. We've been talking about that a lot lately. And Lee Christian, I hadn't noticed this, but Lee Christian is telling us that on Apple Music, Get Off is listed as Get Off with Eric Leeds. So that's interesting. Yes. All right. So let's get through our housekeeping for the day. And again, happy birthday to the one and only Eric Leeds yesterday, but every day is Eric Leeds Day for me. But we want to give a very special shout out to Eric. Please send him birthday wishes and love. And we're going week to week, not date to date, on what did Prince do this week. And you can follow the detailed schedule by basically scanning that QR code or type it in bit.ly/Prince Book Club. You know what, Kenneth? This is a good question. Does Morris Day have a star? I don't think he does. Can someone confirm or deny that? Because I want to know that as well. So, you do not need. See, Lee, do you have the expanded edition? But it would be nice if you want to follow the schedule that we have. And Ricky to the rescue in terms of the star. Nope. That is a no. And let's see. Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second. Let me see. I don't know, Ricky, if you want to come on. Let me see if I can find you really quickly. Or maybe not. Can I do that? I'm not as quick as I thought I would be. Why does search never work for you when you're trying to search? It doesn't really work. I'll try again later. All right, so get back to the housekeeping with the quickness. These will be archived. This one would be archived today only on @PolisSolid since Michael's not with us. But please subscribe, like, and help spread the word. It's really important in my personal opinion, because we're spreading the word about what Prince was doing every week this year in 1984. So please use the hashtag WDPDTW for what did Prince do this week. And you can send me stuff if you want me to share it in the slideshow at WDPDTW@gmail.com. And remember, when we start talking about the tours, we want to hear from you. You can come on, you can share tickets and photos with us and anything you like. And the estate of Prince Rogers Nelson is not affiliated, associated, or connected with the What Did Prince Do This Week book club series. This is an independent endeavor by Miss Prince Lady. I'm gonna take
There you go. There you go.
So the song we just listened to was Lines. And then we want to see Lines, for a long time before we had Eric Leeds on last year. Good morning, Myron. And good morning, Ren. And I love that StreamYard, Lee Christian. Every time I say StreamYard to myself, I actually hear you saying that. So that's pretty funny that you typed it in the chat.
Good morning, Lee Christian, from all the way across the pond, brother. Always good to see brother Lee Christian.
Yes, always, always, always. Now, before we interviewed Eric Leeds last year for What Did Prince Do This Week, I could have sworn that Prince was involved with the track that we were playing, even though he wasn't credited. But nope. And this is actually my favorite song off of Times Square. It's the #1 song, also known as Madhouse 17, according to me. And it's all Eric. Every single thing is Eric. It was composed by Eric Leeds and Matt Bliston, also known as Atlanta Bliss. There were some drum samples by this guy named H.B. Bennett. But other than that, this is all Eric. So it's an incredible track. So I'm really glad that he let me know. Nope, that was all me. And good morning, Stone Freak. We got ATL, but you're not late because ATL was the first in the chat, and we got a lot of ATLians with us today. So I am never without Atlanta. So I want to give a shout out to Tanja, as well as Chip and Sparrow, for posting the purple vinyl. We talked about that last week. And we also showed a little bit of the Neapolitan colored vinyl for the Times. Ice Cream Castles is one of my favorite colored vinyls. It looks so good. Like, the picture doesn't really do it justice. You have to see one in real life. And then I love that Chip and Sparrow also put Sheila E.'s A Glamorous Life colored vinyl. Both the Ice Cream Castle and Sheila E.'s Glamorous Life were Rhino re-releases. I love the Rhino re-releases. They do a fabulous job. And I particularly love the Sheila E. vinyl with the black label and the teal type. It's the designer in me. So anyway, I just wanted to give some thanks for seeing this on the interwebs, because I'm not on the interweb that much anymore. I'm trying to stay off this year. And so I'm only searching for hashtags. And one of the hashtags is WDPDTW. And yes, so Chris is saying Eric's sax plan is one of the reasons I love the family's version of Nothing Compares to You. I prefer the original version of Nothing Compares to You. And for me, the original version, even though it's technically not the original, is the family's version, meaning St. Paul singing lead. That's my favorite version, even over Prince's version. And I know that's blasphemous, but that is my, yes, go ahead.
I gotta get the door. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. And so let's see. Yes, Christina. Oh wow, you got the blue vinyl? That is fantastic. Isn't it beautiful? It's so beautiful. Yes, and I'm very happy that Rhonda Nicole says same. All right. And then all right, Lee Christian is saying that Rosie's live duet with Prince is theirs. Thank you, Chris. Yes, we can be controversial out here, but it's just our personal preference. Everyone has their personal preference, and that one is mine. So thank you, Chris, for being with me. All right, so we are at week 3 of What Did Prince Do This Week? And again, I love this disclaimer by Neil Dash, at least what we know. And obviously, things always pop up in terms of, let's see, hold on. Let me see if I can find, let me see if I can do this real quick. 1 second. Doing this. I think today is the. So, Ricky, if you check your email and look for a calendar invite, you should be able to find it. All right. So, let's see. Yes. Stone Freak, all things Rosie. Happy New Year, Jesse. How are you?
Yes.
It's so great to see you.
Thanks, Rosie.
All right. So, Ricky, you're
New Year, Jesse. How are you? Yes.
So, Ricky, you're actually, I can hear myself through you. So, like your sound is either coming out of your, let's see. Okay, I don't hear myself now. Okay, good.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
No problem. So, look, I got friends. Like when they come on. Look at that. I feel so good. It's always great to have friends. Friends
You need to have that
that you can depend on.
what? I know what's that purple friends assemble, kind of like the Avengers assemble.
Yes, yes.
I thought she was gonna break out into the Dionne Warwick. That's what friends are for.
No, I was thinking of Houdini.
Oh
That
yeah.
works. Hip Hop 50, that works.
Yes, that's my friend's song. And then obviously, Old Friends for Sale, but you guys aren't old friends for sale, so that doesn't really apply to this particular situation. But thank you so much, Ricky, for coming on. All right, so let's dig into week 3. What did Prince do this week? One new song this week, and it's a scorcher. So I'm going to wait until we go to the next page. Who knows what is the new song for the week? Because that lets me know that you've been reading. Who's going to put in the chat what is the new song for the week? So while we wait to see if anybody's been reading, Ricky, tell us, how have you been? How's life on your end?
Oh, life is good. Okay, just trying to stay between the sky and the earth, kick a little dirt, as Warren G would say.
Awesome. I love that.
Can't call it. How about you?
I'm good. Okay. And we have a winner, Christina Sugar Walls. That is correct. So that lets me know that either you're super fast on the draw with your book in front or you actually did the reading. We don't know, but we're going to take that. You actually did the reading. We really do appreciate it. I love this. Blade Brown says, avoids eye contact with the teacher.
Can I go to the bathroom, please?
Yeah.
See, Lee know about that one. Can I go to the bathroom?
Today. What do today? Oh.
Yes. So I think this is actually a pretty, and Christina's like, I did the reading. So this is so great. Thanks so much, Christina, for coming through. I personally think that Sugar Walls is one of Prince's signature songs, even though obviously he didn't sing it. It is Sheena Easton. I love it compared to his other, he's did more than one collab with Sheena Easton. My least favorite being the name that I won't mention because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But if anybody knows me, you should know which one that I don't like. But I love the collaboration of Sugar Walls. And I think the beginning of Sugar Walls, like, is that a shaker? Like that? Like, what is that, Ricky, as a musician?
Yeah, I think it is a shaker because in the video, I know the percussionist has like one of those little percussion things that you kind of do like that with.
That's right, Blade Brown. We ain't gonna mention the song, but represent, Blade Brown. Represent. That's right. Represent for those that out here got love. Yeah, now let's move on.
Yeah, y'all stop hating on that song.
That's right.
This is interesting, Stone Freak. Okay, now you're gonna make me watch Purple Rain one more time. So Stone Freak is saying in the bar scene in Purple Rain that they swear they hear Sugar Walls. Ooh, and I love this comment. Vanessa saying, I always imagine Vanity singing Sugar Walls. Now, speaking of other people singing Sugar Walls, so this morning, where's my vinyl?
That's a good observation because I wonder if he would have given that had she stayed around.
I'm sure. Let's see.
That's right. That's right. Represent. Nothing else need to be said than that right there. Represent.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So Stone Freak's coming through. It is the D-Tune Shakers from the Lynn Drum.
Now that's specifics. Way to go, Stone Freak.
Yeah.
D-Tune Shakers. I never would have guessed that one. D-Tune Shakers.
No, we want the specificity. So we want that specificity. So thank you, Stone Freak.
D-Tune Shakers.
Yes, yes, indeed. And Kim is saying, "Are you sure that wasn't just possessed, Stone?" And word. Oh wait, I put this wrong. People were mad at Sheena for doing that song too. Do you guys remember this in real time?
Because she was like Britain's sweetheart. And being Britain's sweetheart. And yeah, remember now, I want to get it right because she was also the morning train lady, right? Like my baby takes the morning train, and she was a real like pop icon. Yeah, there you go. She was the wholesome pop icon, and the fact that Prince got his dirty little paws on her. And if I'm not mistaken, was it either Ebony or Jet that did the story about that, and supposedly he had bought her an apartment or something, or she had an apartment. And I remember that because I remember thinking like, that was the time I got mad. I'm like, oh, come on, man, you got a better stable than that. Come on, I mean, I didn't see her in the purple stable like that, but yeah, they were. And maybe in 2024, I shouldn't be saying purple stable. I remember. Ding. I will say this. Sadly, every time I hear Sugar Walls, I do think of Morning Train, which is like really crazy. Like I can't hear Sugar Walls without thinking like, I wonder if I'm gonna play Morning Train next. So yeah,
that is crazy. Okay, so Carolee's coming through because again, in the name of specificity, Carolee is saying P did not use the Lynn drum, only the LM1. So we want to be specific. So thank you so much, Carolee. I appreciate that. I'm from the South and we're not that specific, just FYI. So
there you go. Hey. Don't get directions from a Southerner. Go down that way, make that left. When you see Bobo in there, you know you there. There you go. That's
there you go.
Okay, turn it to you told him.
There you go.
Yes.
You ain't getting no streets. You ain't getting no streets.
Okay, so I'm gonna share some vinyl and I'm gonna talk about it. So this was the first time that in real time I was poor and I bought a lot of used vinyl. So I picked this up and this is my original copy that I picked up, and it has 2 mixes on it. It has the red mix and it also has the dance mix. The dance mix is 7 minutes and the red mix is 5 minutes and 28 seconds. I put both of them in our weekly playlist for this week because I want somebody to listen to the red mix, and I swear I hear Jill doing some of the speaking parts, and like there's this laugh and it sounds like Jill. So am I going crazy or is it that Jill? So I really want to know. So if someone will listen to the red mix of Sugar Walls, please help me out. And then Record Stove Day one year actually had this pictured vinyl of Sugar Walls here. Yeah. And you can also get the mixes on the back here. So that's a little vinyl action for you. And let's continue with our slide deck. Okay. So, and then in addition to the one new song, we had 5 studio visits for this week. Okay. So what did Prince do this week? In January 1984. So we got overdubs for the my draws listed as yo draws. It's interesting.
Okay, you got it right this time, Deanna. You said it right this day.
As you were here. And then Jungle Love overdubs. If the Kid Can't Make You Come overdubs plus mix. And then my draws, vocal overdubs and mix. Then on Wednesday, we got the Bird overdubs. And then on Thursday, we got Ice Cream Castle album compilation and the Bird live version. And then we got Sugar Walls basic tracking, but it was listed as new song. So that's what Prince did, still working on Ice Cream Castle in the summertime. All right, so we're going to get our reading, and I'll get started with the first reading of the day. We are going to turn to page 234 to talk about My Draws and Jungle Love. All right, I'm not going to wait for everybody to get to their pages, but hopefully you are there. Okay, so My Draws listed as Yo Draws, Overdubs, Jungle Love, Overdubs, Sunset Sound, Studio 2, 3:30 p.m. to 1:30 a.m., booked, lock out. And I'm going to mute you, Ricky, just for a second because of the page turning. I'm really sensitive to sound because I'm one of those people. I feel like the aliens are going to come up and take me whenever I hear. Okay, so this is the quote from Jesse. There's only one Jesse. In fact, actually, that's not true because my great-grandfather was Jesse. So this is Jesse Johnson. And it was a culmination of all of us being together, and with the 3 different styles, there was just something about it, especially when you get Prince and Morris. It was really magic. I was just there and fortunate enough to come up with some things and so forth and so on. And those guys were magic together. I love this comment from Jesse. I do really think that it was magic together, Prince and Morris together. Like we just talked about Tricky last week. It's one of my favorite songs. And you just hear those two as brothers having so much fun. All right, here we go. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. Prince apparently felt he had enough tracks for the 3rd album by the time. More than enough were in the can. And this session was the first to start putting them into their final shape. Prince spent 10 hours working on another round of overdubs for My Draws and Jungle Love, which had been recorded the previous March. It is likely that Wendy Melvoin and Lisa Coleman recorded background vocals during this session. Then I'm going to skip down to the last sentence on this page. A quick mix was completed and 2 cassettes were made. So that is Sunday. All right. Now we're going to move on to Monday, and we got If the Kid Can't Make You Come. So who wants to read this? Celie or Ricky? Which one?
I go.
All right.
I'm gonna get the short one. There you go. Leave Ricky alone. You understand? Just so y'all know, I'm not reading Sugar Walls. That's the longest one. Just so you know. Just so you know, that is the longest one. And again, we always thank Brother Tudahl for this great research. But again, brother, can I get some 12-point font? Can a brother get some 12-point font? You made me pull out my Inspector Gadget last week, but I think I'm in a room with some light. All right. So, Monday, January 16, 1984, If the Kid Can't Make You Come, possible overdubs and mix. Of course, My Draws, vocal overdubs and mix. Peggy Mack is the assistant engineer. The quote by Morris Day, I think we came out at a time where it was still real music. I don't think it was fad music. I think it's stuff that you can put on and it still sounds good. It was all baked in the oven like it was supposed to be, not microwave. Last Morris. Prince, Morris Day, and Jesse Johnson continued to whittle the Time album down to 6 songs. Left on the cutting floor were Tricky, Chocolate, and My Summertime Thing, among others. Tonight's schedule included 6 hours working on Day's final vocal overdubs and background chants from others, a 3-hour break from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m., and mixing If the Kid Can't Make You Come and My Draws, prepping them for sequencing for the album. If the Kid Can't Make You Come, 9 minutes and 13 seconds, was edited 7 minutes and 33 seconds during an undocumented future session. The edits can be heard at 2 minutes and 40 seconds and 5 minutes and 53 seconds in the release tracks. It is obvious that not much care was placed in creating smooth edits, so it is likely that by this point the album was considered good enough. Although she wasn't directly involved in these sessions, Susan Rogers was aware that the band was breaking apart. Quote, things were pretty much over and Ice Cream Castles was just a sign-off. I don't think anybody had any hopes that it was going to do well. Morris could put on his best face so that they could get through. It was his livelihood too. He made money, so he was smart enough to know, quote, until I get a better situation, I'm staying here, end quote. So they worked together, but Morris was a very unhappy man, end of Susan's quote. The parts of the song that were removed consisted of almost a minute of Day and the group of female voices, including Jill Jones and possibly Sharon Hughes, chanting the track's title and Hollywood, France, London dance. And 45 seconds of Day in his sexiest voice saying things like, as a matter of fact, let's try another position. And additional repeated chants of Holland, France, London dance. The song comes back in on the last half of the chants, completely eliminating the Holland, France section. The session ended at 6:30 a.m. and 2 cassettes were made, including one containing If the Kid Can't Make You Calm that was sent to the Warner Brothers vault.
All right. So before we start talking about If the Kid Can't Make You Calm, I want to bring up Mila's comment in the chat, which is a good one. Mila saying, Darling Nikki kicked off the whole filthy 15 of the PMRC. So this is actually the list, and Sugar Walls was on the 15.
Yep, what?
Sugar Walls is on the 15. Say that multiple times. Prince's Darling Nikki was also on the Filthy 15. And then you also have Vanity Strap On Robbie Baby, or Robbie Baby. I can't remember. I haven't listened to that song in a long time. And it's some other interesting ones like Cyndi Lauper's She Bop. Like I never really listened to that song intently, but Mary Jane Girl's My House is also on the Filthy.
You know why She Bop is on there, right?
No.
It's about masturbation.
Okay. Well, there you go.
That's why it's on there. Yeah, that's
right. That shows you how much, again, I am not, we've talked about this and I feel really bad talking to the author of the lyrics of Prince that I don't listen to the lyrics to songs till sometimes 10 years later. So I didn't know what she was talking about.
And you know, I'll say this about that list, and I'll talk in comparison, and I don't want to sound like the old man here, but you know, what I find interesting is that Prince and others don't really get a lot of credit for being lyrically smart, right? Because if you compare, say, a song like Sugar Walls with a song like, and again, I'm not calling anybody out. I want to be clear. I'm not saying these people are bad, but I'm just saying that I like the literary illusion. Like there's a line in Prince's Delirious that I didn't know that it was a, quote, dirty line until I sang it. Like, you know how you singing with the song? And then Prince goes, I want to take a little dip in and out around your leg. And I went, ooh. You know, it was like, but it was like, that's what's missing for me. That today, Tambourine is also about self-satisfaction. Yes, and I cover that extensively in my book about Tambourine being about self-satisfaction, because it also relates to something that Professor Duff, if you haven't read Professor Duff's article about Prince as a world builder, because what Prince is doing in Tambourine is not only discussing self-satisfaction, but he's also giving you world builder in the way that Prince would create his own utopian world around these particular things. And so I think that when we look at those original Filthy 15, I think we should also do a lot of discussion around the difference between the time and effort and artistry that was put into lyrics then, as opposed to people just saying anything, and I just don't find it creative. Like, I want to think about your lyrics. I want you to create a picture for me that I wasn't able to create for myself. That's it. I'll shut up.
So there's a lot of self-satisfaction songs coming through. And then I like Mila's comment that Mila's
self-satisfaction songs.
Yes, I like that. Thank you for that language, Liegh. But Mila's saying that possibly they were just picking on Prince because it's like,
Oh, they were.
yeah, they were.
Because at that time, he like you remember, he was not the spiritual choir
Right.
boy.
Yeah.
So like he was getting a lot of flack for being all these things, all these accusations, and so there were a lot of Bible thumpers thumping against him. So like that was what I remember seeing that list in Rolling Stone back in the day. Was like they just picking now because out of that list he only had 2 songs.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even that like overt. I mean, compared to some of those other people were, like he wasn't as upfront, you know. I mean, now that stuff that he did that they thought was so bad back then is like it's not even PG-13, it's PG now.
Mm-hmm.
But then they made it bigger than what it actually was because it was, I guess, new, or maybe it was because it was a brother doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they was like, oh well, you know, he's riding high, let's pick him.
Right.
Because he was, you know, like on top of everything, so he was an easy target.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like you said, he was the big fish in the pond, right? He was the one that if we get him, right, he was the Al Capone, to put it in that way, right? If we get Prince, we get the Al Capone. And then it was also a lot of it was reputation. Like, and I know I've said this quote before because I can't remember if it was in Black Beat or Right On, where somebody said that Purple Rain is just Prince trying to clean up his perverted act to get mainstream crossover press. So going into Purple Rain, right? Remember, we've talked about this before. Going into Purple Rain, there was the rumor that Purple Rain was going to have an X rating, right? Nobody knew how somebody as dirty as Prince, and then compared to Michael Jackson's then Disney persona. Like Michael Jackson was Disney, Prince was X-rated. Michael Jackson was you could bring your entire family to the show. Prince was, there's a clip about Beyonce saying when her aunt told them they were going to a Prince show, they started crying because they didn't want their aunt to go get turned out by Prince. So I think a lot of people forget that from 1980 to 1985, 85, 86s, right? Prince and Rick James were the bad boys of the industry. And I think that's difficult for people to understand because we've lived through Tupac and we lived through Snoop and we lived through DMX and we lived through 50 Cent. No, from 1980 to 1985, 86, Rick James and Prince were like, and I need to say this because a lot of people forget this. They weren't just the bad boys. Until hip hop, they were the hood representatives. And I think that's also something that's really difficult for people to understand that Prince and Rick James were hood representatives. Now end on this. And what D'Angela's gonna inspire me to do is go into my garage closet like she did when I got the Prince family thing. Because I have a VHS. There's a VHS I have of, we all of us got those bootleg VHS that had those snippets of different things and whatnot. And so there's a snippet from a radio station, not a radio, television station, that they're interviewing people standing online for the Purple Rain tour. So these are people out, they bought tickets, and they're getting ready to go into the Purple Rain show. And then I want to say it's in New York or Brooklyn, so I want to say it's in New York somewhere. I know that the young brothers are young, he's probably somewhere between the ages of 18 and 25. And this was really funny. So the young black kid between the ages of 18 and 21, he's caught dressing like Prince. And I want to be clear, he has on like purple, what is it above your eyes? Is that eye mask? And what is that the when you put
eyeshadow?
Eyeshadow.
He has a Jerry curl and purple eyeshadow. And this is what he says. The young lady, the news lady says, so Prince is your favorite? And he says, yes, Prince is my favorite. And she says, why not Michael Jackson? And my man goes, Mike too soft. I'm like, you got purple eyeshadow. You're saying Mike is too soft. But that puts into perspective, Prince and Rick James were feared. They were the quintessential, don't let the women and children go to this concert. And so that is why Prince makes the Filthy 15 for everything that everyone said, but also because of reputation. And I think people forget that And that's the thing that I don't want people to forget when we're telling Prince's story and because Prince's narrative arc is one of the greatest stories ever told. When you think about this narrative arc from where this brother began to where he ended as one of the most respectful and hailed musicians of all time, that his story is one of the great stories that need to be told out there.
Yeah, Prince was unifying too. Like people forget that. Like, you know, around this time, you had all types of Prince fans. Like, I mean, you know, during this time, man, I know a lot of people were coming on board that weren't on board 1999, and it was a lot. Like a lot. It was people coming out of woodworks like, yeah, hey, look, I'm a Prince fan now. And you were like, wow, you really? Okay.
Right.
I mean, seriously. I mean, you know, man, for those of us who who had been on board for a while, you start to see different like demographic and then the ethnic groups kind of come on board, and that was probably shocking for some folks that hey, you know, when they come home and their child, you know, takes down a Def Leppard poster, puts up the Prince poster. Or
Exactly.
you know
How many
that
of y'all remember the movie? Remember the movie Soul Man, where the white guy puts on the blackface because he's trying to get a scholarship or something. He's trying to get affirmative action.
yeah. See Thomas Howell, yes,
Yeah,
Outsiders, yeah.
and James Earl Jones is in there, and that's one of those movies that I like, though I'm not 100% comfortable with because of some of the things they may be saying. Remember when they go through the black stereotypes?
Mm-hmm.
And Prince is one of the black stereotypes, like when the white girl brings the black guy home, and the two stereotypes they use in the parents' mind, Eddie Murphy and Prince.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to know about where Prince was in the zeitgeist of white people's imagination. That's it.
So one thing I want to bring up, Ricky, that you haven't brought up, and no one can really understand this unless you experienced it in real time. But in high school, there were two camps, Prince or Michael Jackson, and there were literally fist fights. I kid you not.
Rumbles. Rumbles.
For Prince and Michael Jackson. Like if you're a Prince fan or a Michael Jackson fan. So you had to kind of take a side. So my side was solidified. I was Prince all day, every day. And it was a real thing. Ricky, can you like you nod your head, but let them know. Like
I mean, it was because you got to remember, like this is, you know, the Victory Tour is still going on.
Yep.
And it was still a hot ticket. Like that was a hot ticket. For the summer. Like that was the show that everybody in January was praying and hoping for because you know tickets were like $30, which was blasphemous at that time. And people were crying foul. But yeah, like Mike was, you know, like Mike was on his thing, and it just so happened that the Victory album didn't pan out how people thought it was, but Mike was still, you know, like the draw. And so then you have this other alternative, you know, for people who weren't all on the Mike train come along, and he's like badass. you know, he's badass. His group's are badass. He's hanging around women that look badass, and it's like, oh, you know, so like people are checking the boxes, and then like D'Angelo said, you could go with the Disney version of the, you know, like this dude Mike, which was nothing wrong with that, but then you had this other guy that was like, I mean, like C. Lee said, kind of like the hood representative. And people went with that. And it was like, whereas one was ascending, one was descending. And so with the Purple Rain wave, it was everywhere. On top of, he was touring later. You know, he was kind of a bit more accessible than Mike was in some regards. And so people would have, you know, like you'd have these, and it was, you know, Mike started to get this backlash a little bit. Like, you know, like C. Lee said, like I know the guy said that, you know, Mike was soft or Thriller was soft. And so you would have these things in school where you'd see people wearing like Michael Jackson. Man, you still wearing Michael Jackson buttons?
Right.
And then it would escalate, and then like D'Angelo said, it'd be rumble in the jungle.
Yeah.
and
unfortunately.
and you started to see people. At one point, you saw a lot of like Michael Jackson say lookalikes in school, and then it started to shift. You started to see people dressing like Prince or Morris and them, and then people would ridicule the kids that were kind of still into Michael Jackson, and sometimes that ridicule would garner a pushback. And so it kind of became a thing. And I guess in hindsight, I kind of hate it now, but it kind of became a thing where it was almost like a pre-cancel culture. Like you almost kind of like if you liked MJ, you would like cancel. Oh, they like Michael Jackson. You're white.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Which was unfortunate. Which later it didn't turn out to be that way. But that was kind of how it kind of was, sort of. But yeah, like Prince Prince was able. I think people were able to identify with Prince in a lot of ways that they couldn't identify with Mike. Um, whether that be musically, whether that's from say the movie or say the images and I know what have you. He just had a broader appeal, and they had their run of MJ,
Yeah.
and it was like like this new guy is out, but yeah, but that that versus thing lasted at least until about maybe 1990. I think to after Love, Sexy and Bad kind of ran its course.
Can
Yeah,
I?
yeah. For me, like in high school, it was definitely my entire 5 years of high school for
Yeah.
sure.
It
It
was,
was, and I went to high school from '83 to '88, and that was like hardcore prime time in terms of the battle. So
I
yeah,
know you remember people having like you would walk by people's lockers and they would have either Prince pictures or like MJ pictures. It was never. I very rarely remember seeing both.
yep,
Very rarely. It was either one or the other.
yep,
And if I can, I like to recommend a book and an essay. The book I would like to recommend, and I don't know if you can find it, you can probably get it online. There's a book called The Rediscovery of Black Nationalism. And then there's an essay titled The New Negro by Elaine Locke. And the reason I want to recommend that book and that essay is because I want y'all to read that in context to the fact that while a lot of this is fun for us and a lot of this we have these memories and it's also aesthetic, so it's art and aesthetics, but it also speaks to the fact of why Black people always felt the need to have to choose this over that. And I think people have to understand that unfortunately there's this kind of cultural arcing and cultural thing about there only being one seat at the table, and we're always fighting for that one seat at mainstream white America's table. And a lot of that, so it wasn't just an artistic, like if it was just artistic and ideological, right? Did you like Prince's music or did you like, Michael Jackson style, but there was also, and it continues because what happens is in the late 80s, early 90s, here comes hip hop as a new form of Blackness. And so that's why I always turn people on to that essay, The New Negro, because in that Elaine Locke talks about that every 7 to 10 years, there's a new Blackness. And Black people are always grappling around what does it mean to be Black in this time. And also Amir Baraka in his book, Blues People, discusses it in the context of the changing same. And so I think that when we have these discussions about Prince and Michael Jackson, and again, we can have them lightheartedly, and I enjoy having them in a lighthearted way because it speaks to the culture. But I also think that we need to also understand there was some serious kind of social political underpinnings beneath these, in which Black people were always grappling about what is the best way of Blackness, which is ironic, right? We're grappling about what's the best way of Blackness to fight against white supremacy, but we're hurting each other while we're doing it, right? And so that's just kind of put all that, because I do think a lot of that played into the demise of Michael Jackson. I think a lot of that played into some of the things that Prince endured later in his life, right? And so I think those things also have to be added to the equation. I'll shut up.
Yeah, well, the magazines during that time didn't help either because they were
Yeah, exactly.
steadily pushing pushing a versus pre versus social media type deal, but it was who's top of the year, who's this, who's that, type deal.
So let's get back to if the kid can't make you come. So
Mhm.
talk to me, Ricky.
Well, I will tell you, the 12, 13-year-old me was when I heard that, it was kind of an eye-widening moment. It was like, oh, okay, interesting song. Especially following Lady Cab Driver, very interesting song. But I was like, Prince is on a pattern here. He did this on one album, he did it on say another. I was talking to Celia about this just yesterday. You know, that song and Chili Sauce are the only. Well, like this album is say the only album that doesn't have a time ballad per se. Like, okay, the first one has Girl, second one has Gigolos Get Lonely Too, fourth one has Sometimes It Gets Lonely. This is the only one that doesn't have a like time slow jam song.
I
And
I consider this one though to be that song. If the
do
kid
you?
Make You Come, yeah, I do. But kind of going back to what you were just saying, when I heard it in real time, and to be honest, this is the time album out of all the time albums, out of the four that I listen to the least.
Mm.
And I didn't know what to think of If the Kid Can't Make You Come in real time, because I was also 13 years old and I was like, what is going on?
You know what? That's always been my question, and I'm gonna ask the people out there, ladies. I know what most males probably thought about this, hearing it. But what was the female like response hearing this in real time as a teenager? Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I think it would be great to hear from others because, again, I never listened to the lyrics. Like they could be singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb," and, and I'm serious, and people don't understand that. So, like, because like my mom found something that I had wrote. It was a Prince lyric, and she thought, and it was just like, oh, I'm just writing. I didn't. They didn't mean anything to me. Like I wasn't like, and for me, it was like, how does the music resonate with me? And because, and we talked a little bit about this last week, Celie. I mean, again, you have to take this in context. I'm a 13-year-old. My musical palette isn't that expanded. I mean, it is expanded, but not that expanded, especially in Prince world. So I'm expecting more hardcore funk, right?
yeah,
And
mm-hmm.
I'm going, I don't know what to do with this. If about musically, I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know. And
Well, I mean,
it goes on. And it's like, why is this 7 minutes and whatever?
I'm saying, well, think about it like this, right? You got Ice Cream Castles, Jam. You got My Draws, Jam. Jungle Love, Jam. Bird, Jam.
But Ricky, wait, I think of Ice Cream Castle and The Kid Can't Make You Come sonically as siblings.
Do you?
Yeah, like for me, when I think of Ice Cream Castle, the songs, the Ice Cream Castles, I think it's chill.
It is. It is.
And I also think of If the Kid Can't Make You Come as chill.
Oh, okay. Now the music on it is like fire.
Yeah.
The music on it is fire.
So to put it in context for me, I think people have to understand that since the age of 6, I had been attending the B.B. King homecoming concert every year in Indianola, Mississippi. So when you are a child that's been attending the B.B. King the B.B. King homecoming every year in Indianola, when I hear If the Kid Can't Make You Come, I go, oh, they were raised on the blues. Like,
yeah, okay.
You see what I'm saying? That's why the song.
I can hear that.
That's why it resonated for me, because I was absorbed in the blues. It was so for me to hear blues, and so I can see why it could be confusing for other people, because if that's a thread or a strain that's not innate or organic to what you're doing. But the minute I heard If the Kid Can't Make You Come, and then 20, 30 years later, right, to read Morris Day's book, and then remember, I think it was on the Condensate video DVD where Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam them were talking about, especially Terry Lewis being from Arkansas and being in the blues, and Morris in his book talking about Prince. By the time he met Prince in high school, Prince was an accomplished blues musician. So I think that The Kid Can't Make You Come, and that's the other thing that I think gets missed about Morris's first album, particularly what is it? Don't Wait for Me. Not what it's not. It's not don't. What's it? Yeah, Don't Wait for Me. That's a blues song. Like Don't Wait for Me is a blues song, and I can't tell y'all how much it filled my Clarksdale, Mississippi soul. The first time I like the guitar, so I want everybody go listen to the guitar solo on Don't Wait for Me. And you're getting a blues thesis. It is a blues lesson that to me is going back to If the Kid Can't Make You Come. And when you hear it live, like when you hear the time live now, that's what they're always playing in the breakdown. When Morris is inviting women on stage or when he does his breakdown, they're always playing The Kid Can't Make You Come. So for me, it was my 14-year-old, oh my God, my favorite artist loved the blues. Like that's what it was. It was like this is why I'm so glad I love Prince, because clearly Prince and everybody associated with him knows about the blues. I'll shut up.
All right, so I'm going to respond to you, Liegh. So, I grew up in Alabama, so obviously my uncles were playing the blues, and I knew what the blues was. And by this point, I knew that Prince was behind the time. And my thing is that Prince was a musical innovator, and again, music. And like part of it was like, why is he doing the blues? Like he's supposed to be going out in the musical frontier and doing something quirky, weird, something I've never heard before. And again, I'm talking about me as a 13-year-old.
Right. I'm with you.
And I was like, this is basic, And I mean, and obviously that's not true, but it like when I was 13, that's how I felt at the time.
Right.
So that's one thing. And then another thing, I love this comment from TP that says, I was just confused using kid in the title from a song being sung by Morris, since Prince is the kid in Purple Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was confusing for me too. I couldn't get it, but I tell you what, I never played that song on family road trips. It was always a as soon as Jungle Love was over, it was like fast forward. Wait. I didn't want that. Nope, didn't. But I love the song though. I mean, like you said, like if you take the dialogue out and then I know the music is phenomenal. Even the skit is kind of funny. You know what I'm saying? But just as a 12, 13-year-old hearing that, and you're like, oh, it's kind of like, I forget the sister's name, but she was on the 1999 panel that you had. She was talking about Lady Cab Driver. She was like, oh, okay. So is that what you're supposed to do? Okay. That was it. You're just kind of like, oh, wow. Okay. Cool. And then it was just fast forward.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to keep moving because we got a lot more reading to do. And I think next up is Ricky. And we're going to turn to page 236 and read about overdubs for The Bird.
Now, I don't have the extended version.
That's okay. I love it because we can see what changes were made.
Oh, okay. Bird overdubs. Sunset Sound Studio 2, 6 o'clock p.m. to 3 a.m. Locked out. Prince and Morris, Peggy Mac, engineer. Quote from Peggy McCrary. I said Peggy Morris. I'm sorry. I don't remember any fights in the studio during the Ice Cream Castle sessions because everyone knew to follow Prince. He was the guy, and you didn't pick on him. He picked on you. This is a business. It was sometimes very strange because it was sort of a boys' club. Peggy McCreary. The session was scheduled to begin at 2 p.m., but Prince didn't start recording until 4 hours later. Ooh. Occasionally on days like this, especially as Prince wrapped up at the end of a project and before he was inspired enough to start the next, he wanted to get out of the studio to do something fun. It was rare that we would sit around and have a conversation, reveals Peggy McCreary. But there were times that he'd be very chatty. He'd talk about his childhood. Sometimes he'd come in and you'd be ready to work and he'd say, come on, I've got a limo. Let's go to a movie. And I'd say, I've got work. And he'd say, no, no, no. And we'd go down to Santa Monica and see this movie. in this huge stretch limo. Once the sessions begins at 6 p.m., Prince spent 6 hours on additional tweaks to the bird. At midnight,
Ricky. Read that slowly. 6 hours on
Prince spent 6 hours. CS. CS hours for my Hispanic purple people out there. on to additional tweaks to the bird. 6 hours. At midnight, a more detailed mix was created of the track, and Prince compiled the album for the first time in order that it would be ultimately released on Ice Cream Castle. 5 copies were made of this collection. Note that the album is called Ice Cream Castle, while the actual title track is called Ice Cream Castles. In many ways, Prince never understood the power of the time. Let me say that again. In many ways, Prince never understood the power of the time. Albert Mangoli recalls Prince's reaction when he saw the first edits of the movie. Prince would just look at the footage that I shot of Morris, and he would sit there, just eyes wide open, because he goes, "They are magnetic." Now Prince is magnetic, but he's magnetic in a different way. When he saw how I shot them, he goes, "Man, what is it about them?" Because the audience goes nuts when they do that. How come? Well, because they're in unison. When they're on stage, they are moving as a pact. When you are on stage, you're not moving with the band. It's just a different dynamic.
So let's hold there.
Yes, hold on that one.
How do you guys feel about when I read that? I actually, first of all, I reread the first sentence. I was like, I don't know. And then I read the quote that supports the opening line. And I'm wondering, is this memory correct of Al Magnoli? Because I would assume that Prince would know that the time is on fire.
I think that you can know something and be reminded of it in a way that's not necessarily shocking, but maybe jarring. Like it's like
you know what? Like, it's like a parent watching their child do something.
Right. Exactly.
It's like you know your child is good at this, but then when you see them do it, or like your mom coming to see you at work and then you're giving a presentation like D'Angela, like she may know like you're phenomenal, but then when she sees you in your element, it's like, oh yeah, my baby bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, she got okay. I mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. And on the side, we'll talk later. I have like one of the most god awful, embarrassing stories about when my mom came to a presentation I gave and literally got up and started helping clean the board while I was giving a presentation. A 28-year-old grown man giving a literary presentation, and my mom got up and started cleaning the blackboard to help her baby out. And people were like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Shut up." Anyway, but yeah, so I think that's it. Remember, he said that they were the only band of which he was afraid of. So, some of it, how much of that memory, as you say, hey, 30, 40 years ago, how much of that memory, but I wouldn't be surprised with him looking at those dailies going, God damn, right? They tearing it up, right? They, and his mind just as a competitor, like when you are a competitor, two things happen. You can give it up for the next guy, but think, oh man, when Rick and them get their ass off the stage, I mean, I got to, it's like two things. I'm like, God damn, is he just gonna knock everybody out? But I'm also thinking that now I got to take mine to the next level. So yeah, I think that was, and I think the sad thing about it, and I think that Jesse probably said it best later on, was that. And again, I'm projecting a little bit, y'all. So I'm not saying this is true, but I think that the sad thing, I guess, in all these relationships was how long it took Prince to be able to reconcile his competition and love for these people. Right? I think that's the sad part that it wasn't that he didn't love them. It was just that one, his competitive nature and whatever insecurities he had happening with his childhood just made it difficult for him to love them in a way that I think we could have gotten even. Because I think both you and Ricky talked about, I think it was you and Ricky, and maybe a couple of you talked about what Paisley Park could have been if Prince could have got out of his own way.
Mm-hmm.
Like what Paisley Park could have been in if the time were on Paisley Park.
Mm-hmm.
If Vanity was on Paisley Park, if Sheila E. was on Paisley, that's the Motown.
Yeah, and if Jam and Lewis would have been producers.
And if Jam and Lewis producing at Paisley Park.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the Motown. That is so I think a lot of that is just, again, how on point Magnolia's memory is, but I can see that, hey, that's the competition versus the love. And I'll say this, and I end on this. I was a mediocre multi-sport athlete. Emphasis on the mediocre. I won a baseball scholarship. I had a scholarship to play baseball in college. I'm only telling y'all to say that is, for the longest time, I was a poor loser. Like, I had friends who played on other teams that if we lost to them, I wouldn't speak to them the rest of the week. And they knew it. Like my friends, during the game, they would go, "You ain't gonna talk to me after y'all lose." I said, "Hell no, they gonna talk to you." So I can't. When I say that, I want everybody to know that I'm not being critical of Prince in that way. I was a sore loser. And as someone who it took me to my 30s or 40s, stop being a sore loser, that the competition with people you love,
it's fierce. It's fierce.
Every day.
It's fierce.
That is the greatest competition. I'll sit up.
It's fierce. I will say this to his point about the moving in unison. Picture for all my D9 folks out there, step shows. When you see people moving in unison, marching bands, HBC marching bands, it's something powerful about that. Even they, weren't as great live that I think they were, but even like when you would see like Michael Jackson with his brothers, when you saw them moving in unison, I mean, especially like when they were teenagers and younger, it was something powerful about that. So to like Mangoli's point, when you have a unit moving as one, it makes a larger statement. It makes a more powerful statement. Like people like to this day still get geeked off that slide in like the Bird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, they still get geeked, and it's just a simple slide, but it's them moving in unison. And so to like Mangoli's point, yeah, that comes across on screen. It came across, like when you watch Purple Rain and say you see like Jungle Love and like, I mean, every song they're moving in unison. Even the keyboard players are moving with the guys up front. And so whereas with the Revolution, you got some kind of similar like unison movement, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And to your point, one of my memories from Purple Rain is hearing a movie theater full of Black people go woo at the Chickasaw. Like, I remember that. When the time did the Chickasaw, that whole movie theater erupted. So yeah, that moving in sequence is great.
So there are a couple of comments in here. I want to respond to Lee Christian. Lee Christian saying true, but also that's us putting our priorities on him. These things just weren't how he wanted to go with it. But yeah, it's pretty petty competition with friends is awful. Local band scenes are like, that's Allie. I've been quoted as saying Prince didn't need nobody. I stand by that. So like, I'm fine with the way things turned out. I just think it would have been really interesting. Again, I think I mentioned this before. I'm really big on Kung Fu movies and the clans, like the 10 Tigers of Kwang Tung, if you know anything about the 5 Venoms.
I found out she has to be in her house doing Kung Fu.
Right. One of my uncles was really into Kung Fu. And I watched a lot of Kung Fu in my...
D'Angelo got the glow.
There you go.
I mean, because I got the flying guillotine. I'm talking about Shaw Brothers.
Okay, D'Angelo.
Yes. So I've always liked this idea of a posse or a clan. And I, sort of saw, Vanity 6 and the time as Prince's posse, Prince's clan. And in terms of each, like in these Kung Fu movies, each person has a special move, that they were known for and only they could do. And Morris incredible. You know, like Andre is incredible. You know, he was, you know, Andre Simone, he was part of the, you know, Dez is incredible. Like these people are amazing on their own right. But when they are together, it is just like something magical about it. So that's the only reason why I would have loved to know what it would have been like if they would have remained in solidarity. Like imagine Andre could have remained in Prince's orbit, but still do his own thing. And maybe, you know, Prince would sit in on a song or two, but, you know, Andre was actually leading, you know, the charge and all of that. I think that would have been really, really interesting to play out. But obviously that didn't happen. And I'm okay with that. So
but I will push back. And I love Brother Lee. So I like we can have these conversations. I will push back on Brother Lee Christian's point in this way. The problem isn't that Prince didn't want it. The problem is how he wanted it. See, remember, because here's the point. Morris actually tells us that when he got ready to leave, Prince sent his management to tell Morris he could have his own solo deal. So even when Morris is leaving, Prince is still trying to keep him in the company. Jam and Lewis gets fired because they're giving away the secret sauce, not because Prince doesn't want them there.
mm-hmm.
So I think that we're not projecting onto Prince. What we're saying is what Prince wanted wasn't the issue. It was how he wanted it. And the problem is what he wanted was that everybody to remain his puppets. That is, I want y'all all on Paisley Park. I want y'all all under me as long as I'm calling the final shots. And the problem was that the people that he wanted were too talented to live that way.
Right.
And this would be a bad analogy. And again, I'm always towing the line about being canceled, but it's like a guy who wants a strong woman until that strong woman bumps up against him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it. I'll tell him.
You know, in his defense, not that he needs me to defend him. I think he probably may have been that way because his name was on the line.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
And so, you know, I mean, you know, like we're talking now, like we're talking early 84, there had already been some success, but he had to kind of develop that attitude going in with them. Like, hey, if this don't work, y'all not gonna catch the brunt of this. This gonna be me.
Right.
So I'm gonna say do it this way. And then of course, you know, like anybody, like when it worked, you're like, well, if it ain't broke,
right,
don't fix it type deal.
Right.
And it is unfortunate because that would have been phenomenal if we could have seen that whole thing just kind of stay in one particular spot. And you know, I hate that it was nobody around to kind of pull his coattail and say, hey man, you know, you could have that and this too. Just you know, do these things. Or like maybe he did and he just didn't want to listen to him, and he was like, it worked before when I did it, it'll work again. But that's I mean, say, you know, it's you know, we'll never know, but that would have been great because, you know, I've often tried to imagine like what it would have been like had Dez and Andre not left,
Mm-hmm.
and they stayed versus the time.
Mm-hmm.
With Prince and Andre's growing up like connection. You know, would Dre have been the one to say, hey man, we're not gonna let them kick our ass on stage, we go do, you know, some of this that, whatever type deal. You know, because after when, you know, like when certain people started to leave and then others came in, it wasn't like this is my friend type relationship. It was like this is hired hand. And so hired hand does not go say, hey man, we should do this. You know, like hired hand is like, I still want to get my check.
And didn't Jill make that point that the other problem was there were too many non-original Minneapolis people coming in at and around the Purple Rain explosion? And so, like you said, once you get those new people coming in, then you don't have anybody who can pull his coattail. So I think that's a great point that you make.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
it.
So we're going to continue our reading, page 237, start with the ironic part. And Ricky is Magnoli, just Albert Magnoli.
The ironic part of the dynamic was that Prince would never again find that part of the chemistry in any of his other Protege projects. No, he wouldn't, but I'd argue, say Madhouse. He could write and record the music on his own and design everything about a band, but the
Okay,
reason
stop. So whatever I think of Madhouse, I don't think of Madhouse as a Protege project. For me, Madhouse equals Prince.
Okay. Yeah. I feel you. I feel
Okay,
you.
carry on.
Okay.
And to Chris Berner, I think the answer is no. But I think that's a good question he asked in the chat. So yeah, I think the answer to that is no. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. The Time was a gang, an exclusive club that was unified in purpose. They wanted to be better than the one pulling the strings. They fought together to achieve that. The Time was Prince's first real side project, and he allowed them the chance to grow and mature on stage in a way that none of his other protege groups would ever be permitted. Now, that is true. I co-sign that. We lived fun, we lived cool, and we lived wild and loose, but we always respected ourselves, and the music explains it, Jerome Benton. We worked hard at it, and we rehearsed all the time, and the outcome was what it is. During this same period, in another studio at Sunset Sound, or possibly at Sound Factory, which was also owned by Paul Camerata, Sheena Easton was working with a McCreary's fiance, David Leonard, on her album A Private Heaven. Is that the same David Leonard that worked with, say, Madonna? Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know. I thought you were going to say no. I don't know that, to be sure.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to ask something else.
All right. A Private Heaven. Leonard mentioned working with Prince, and this impressed Easton enough to ask Leonard to pass a note to Prince telling him she was a fan and that she would be appearing on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson that evening. Easton was similar to many of the women Prince mentored, beautiful, dark hair, and a passion for performing. According to Easton, Prince was able to catch her performance of Hard to Say It's Over and apparently liked what he saw. This is two work orders for the same date that have been combined.
All right, so I'm doing a separate Madhouse conversation in the chat. When I said that Madhouse is Prince and Eric Leeds, I'm talking about specifically Madhouse 8, the first record. Obviously, Madhouse Live was totally different. Prince wasn't even involved. There was a whole band created around that. And then obviously Madhouse 16 had additional musicians like Sheila and Dr. Fink, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
But they could have evolved into something.
Yeah, but I still stand by. I still see Madhouse as a Prince project and not as a Protege project. Because Prince was writing the songs, like that. That's just me. I mean, obviously, we all have different opinions.
You know what? Had we gotten a Sign of the Times tour and saw them open,
Yeah,
all of our views would be different.
But you know what? I will say this though: the point y'all are making. I'm not gonna write it, but somebody could write a great point on where's the line of demarcation between Prince project versus Protege project. I think that would be a really great paper for some of y'all, either the two people on the screen or anybody in the chat for one of the next symposia that you could write a paper on line of demarcation, Prince project, Protege project. How do we know which is which? Because, and you can couch it with a quote. When we get to Sugar Walls, you can quote it with a quote. And when I first heard Nelson George make this quote, I hated and was mad. I had to come back and go, no, he's telling the truth. Now I'm about to make a lot of people in the chat mad. Nelson George said, the problem with Prince is that Nelson George said that Prince's one failure is that as a producer, everybody he produced sound like him. Quote, when you get produced by Prince, you get a Prince production, not produced to be the best person you are. And so I think that you can start that paper with that, as a line of demarcation of which of these projects are just Prince being Prince in different ways, and which of these are real Protege projects, so that you could have a real discussion about this. That's it. I'll shut up.
All right, so I want to say something, but I don't want, hopefully I'll remember it. I want to bring up Arthur. Hi, Arthur. Arthur's question, could the time survive the transition of Prince's sound beyond 1985? If Prince is producing everything and not Jam and Lewis, what does a 1986 time sound like?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question.
I would argue, because Jam and Lewis and Jesse have said sometimes in like rehearsal, stuff was lifted or borrowed. And so I think, and then there have been arguments that Janet's first album is a whole bunch of Prince riffs that were lifted. Well, no, Janet's Control album was a whole bunch of Prince riffs that were lifted and borrowed. So I think they all borrowed from each other. So I would say that if they were still around each other in that capacity with like rehearsing and jamming and doing those things, it might have evolved into something bigger. But because they weren't around, we get the Parade 86, you know, so to say. And so I think if they had stayed around, you know, we get what Jesse might have been working on with his first album and Shockadelica, you know, so we get what Jam and Lewis might have been doing with like Control and Sherelle and Alexander O'Neal. And so Prince's direction may have been different, just as their direction may have been different. So I think had they all been around each other, they would have continued to feed off of each other. And I think that's a big difference in change of sound, with so much that they were no longer around each other. Not to say one was, you know, like primarily taken from, say, the other, but they would feed off each other. And so all of their sounds changed after like initial certain albums. So
all right, you guys are bringing the good questions today. Another good question from Myron is, if the Protege didn't sound like Prince, would you have listened to them at the time, or would they have been as successful?
That's a good question.
The answer for me would have been, just for me, yes, because by that time, remember, I'm coming to Prince already a blues, rock, and funk person. Like I was a blues, rock, and funk and soul person, right? I grew up, you know, Stax. I'm not that far from Stax, right, in Memphis. So them sounding like Prince or having the Minneapolis sound, that was, you know, okay. But I didn't. Let me put it to this way: I don't like every Prince production. So just because it was a Jamie Starr production didn't mean I was going to automatically like it. Right, I could probably throw out some things that I said were like everybody likes this, and I would go like, I'm not, you know. So it wasn't that they had just a Prince sound. It means that there could have been proteges that didn't sound like Prince if they had that blues or rock or funk strain or soul strain that I liked. I would have. So I'm not one of the people that I like these people just because they sound like Prince. There are a lot of people who sound like Prince who suck. And so I think we also have to throw that. But I think it's a great question.
I will say this: in '84 and definitely '85, you had a lot of people trying to sound like Prince that weren't. Some of them got love, a lot of them didn't.
Right.
There were some people who we found out were proteges, and they got love because of just the association. I will say that. I'm not unbiased in that. There were some people, because it was just a standard of excellence. We were like, okay, if you're associated, if he took the time to associate, say, with you and give you a song, then the song's got to be fire, you know. And then that led to other stuff. Yes, Ready for the World was one of those who they sounded like Prince. Now, I know Arthur doesn't like them. I know D'Angelo doesn't care for them.
But I will say this though.
I thought they were okay.
Let me say this. Let me say this. Ready for the World got 10 top 10 hits.
Yeah, that is true. That is
Ready
true.
for the World got 10 top 10 hits.
Yes, and they were better than Full Force.
The rest of the boys.
And in the band battle, and then the band battle, they would beat full force. So yes, I will go with Ready for the
Ooh,
World.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I don't. You know what?
They'll take them.
You just announced a verses that I want to see. I've never been interested. I've never been interested in verses in my life. But if I can see Ready for the World and Full Force,
Yeah,
I go see that verses.
yeah. But it was a lot. And then there were some people that didn't get love. Like I know people who didn't like Jesse because they were like, oh, he's trying to be like Prince. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But then I know people that got on board because he was associated, and you know, even though he says in Free World, you know, some of them don't like the way I hold my mic because I sound too much like my friend. You know that they still jumped on board. So it's kind of a catch-22 back then. Like you kind of had to kind of I guess it was up to the listener, honestly.
And
You
I
know.
will just this is another tangent. This is just me. I think one of the greatest crimes ever committed that we didn't get a fourth album the next year immediately after Love Struck. Because as much as I love verbal penetration, and I want to say this, I love verbal penetration. But as much as I love, and you know, if you have to ask me what's my favorite Jesse record, it's gonna be real difficult for me not to say verbal penetration. But Love Struck is Jesse Johnson at the apex of his superpowers. And the fact that music shifted so quickly. That's why, by the way, folks, we didn't get another Love. That's why we didn't get something. Just hip hop just came in and shifted music. And I've always said that one of the greatest casualties of hip hop taking over black music was Jesse Johnson, because we should have gotten an album the next year after Love Struck. And it's a crime that we didn't get it.
And he had 3 albums out that year because he had Love Struck, he had the Second Tomorrow, and the Scene album, Blueberry Gossip. Then he had like The Crash.
That's right.
The Crash.
And he had all 3 of those around the same season. And I remember, like, wow, I mean, he's on fire. Like, he got all this stuff out. And then, yeah, you're right. Like, after that, I think the only thing he did after that was Cool School, which was in 1990. And that was it.
I'm sorry, you're right. Every Shade of Love. I'm sorry. Thank
Every
you.
Shade of Love.
Every
Yes.
Shade of Love. There you go.
Thanks, TP.
Thanks.
Hey, yeah, appreciate that.
All right, so we're going to get on with a reading. We are on page 236. And see, Lee, I'm going to give you the short one. I'm sorry, 237, the short one.
Woo, thank God. I thought y'all said, man, I'm going to get stuck with walls. Thursday, January 19, 1984, Ice Cream Castle's album compilation, including the Bird live version. And again, Peggy Matt is the engineer. We'll start with a quote from Peggy Matt. Everyone was tired of Prince's control. Everyone was pretty disgruntled by that point. Prince was in control. You did what he said or you were gone. I think Terry and Jimmy were the first to find that out. After a review of the first assembly of the Times Ice Cream Castle cassette from the previous session, the album was organized, mixed, edited, and placed on a clean tape for assembly. 5 hours of additional overdubs and sound effects were added, blending the songs together. 5 more hours were spent mixing and editing the tracks in order and re-recording the segues between the songs, including the organ parts at the end of Ice Cream Castle that blend into the longer version of If the Kid Can't Make You Come, as well as the music box sound effects that bookend the album. The rough assembly consisted of Ice Cream Castle, 7 minutes, 31 seconds, My Draws, 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Jungle Love, 5 minutes and 31 seconds, Chili Sauce, 5 minutes and 45 seconds, If the Kid Can't Make You Come, 9 minutes and 13 seconds, and The Bird, 8 minutes and 13 seconds. Status: the album was later edited down, and this compilation finalized the order of the tracks. There go Brother Arthur. I'll just say this. I'm just going to say this. I hate
What's up, Arthur?
when, and I'm about to contradict myself, y'all. I hate when certain negative things become what we call the blackest moment or something. Okay, I hate that. But I'm just gonna tell y'all, Morris feeling himself at the end of Jungle Love, and the end when he goes, "That's it, that's it." Shit, that was the blackest thing I had ever heard in my life. Although Ice Cream Castle is not my favorite time album, that Morris Day feeling himself at the end of that song, it was like a 15-year-old black kid. You know, like when you see your community on TV or you see yourself on the radio, that feeling. That was for me one of the blackest things at my young age. Seeing, and I understood what the time was in its fullness. That's it.
It was very Richard Pryor-esque.
Yeah.
It was very Richard Pryor-esque. Certainly that.
All right. So welcome, Arthur.
Hey.
Come on, get some of this heat.
If y'all thought the bombs were going off before he got here.
Come on, get some of this heat.
What you got to say about Ice Cream Castle and all the conversations we've been having so far? What's Arthur's take?
Yeah, well, forgive me if the latency kind of has me talking about stuff that's already been
It's okay.
settled.
Let's do it.
The last I heard was Seeley going off because I don't particularly care for Ready for the World. But,
Ten hit songs, brother. 10 hit songs. I'm sorry.
I was really enjoying the conversation. And particularly when we were talking about, when you all were talking about the what if scenario of Jam and Lewis becoming house producers for Paisley Park. Because that, I think, is one of the biggest errors of Prince's career. Because I believe that he really would have controlled the remainder of the 1980s and probably going into the early 1990s. But I really did wonder about the idea of, okay, well, if everyone stayed intact, how do all these other groups transition when two things? One, if Prince is producing you, you're always going to sound like Prince within the scope of whatever his sound is at that time. Pardon the pun. And two, would Prince ever let Jam and Lewis be house producers? Because Jam and Lewis are like, the SOS band doesn't sound anything like a Time record, but it could if Jam and Lewis actually produced the Time, right?
All right, hold on, Arthur. So a couple people are telling me that you're low. That you're low, your audio.
Oh, 1, 2. Am I better? Sorry.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, sorry. My mother always told me I needed to sit up, and I think this is why. But
Mama used to say.
I'm saying that, right? But for real though, it's like Prince, 1985, he releases Around the World in a Day, but Around the World in a Day, as we know, is...
Hold on. So I'm getting like private texts from someone and they're saying, no, you're not louder.
Hold on.
Because you sound fine to me, so I can't hear the lowness that everyone else is hearing.
Okay, man, stop doing your Prince impersonations.
1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, how about now, everybody?
Better? Is that
Yeah,
better?
that's better. Yeah,
Better?
That's better.
Better?
I'm getting stuff that said that your volume is fine. They can
Yeah.
hear you.
Say something else.
So the person who's texting me says yes, it's better, and yes,
Okay.
better in the chat as well.
All right. Apologies, everyone. Yes, but very quickly. My question is, all right, can the Time and these other groups survive if everybody stays together? Can they survive Prince's change in his sound after 1985? And I think that's going to be a real struggle at best.
Boy,
because
if that's not a
Time...
multiverse strand.
I'm saying the time loses, what they are, because Prince walks away from what's considered the Minneapolis sound. I mean, Jesse Johnson, whom I believe was the not just the best representation of the continuation and the evolution of what the Minneapolis sound was. I don't think they could survive. I don't think it could. I just don't think it could work. But,
I agree.
But on topic, I mean, I'm agreeing with Seeley. Like, Ice Cream Castles wasn't my favorite Prince album. I think it was very. I mean, it was very obvious that that Jam and Lewis are gone. There's a different configuration on the album cover, and it's kind of it's just kind of like a dead on arrival album, really, because by the time the album's released, the Morris is gone and the time is all but decimated.
Yeah,
It's just not working for me.
I agree with you. I think that like we dream and say what it would have been, but I think I'll come back to what D'Angelo said, that the cool thing for us that musically worked out for everybody. Like, we still got all these great musical strands. So that's the great thing about it. Like you said, and I'll say something I said at the last symposium that I'll add to this, is just that being in a music group is the only job that people get mad if you quit to go do something else. And that's illogical, but it's illogical because we are emotionally tied to these groups. Like, if the four of us quit our job and go do something else, no one's going to be mad. But we are so emotionally tied to certain groups and to certain movements that we get in our feelings when somebody leaves our favorite group. And that's just illogical. And I'm glad that my father was the first person. When I told my father, I said, man, the time broke up. And my father said they had to. It's too many talented people in that group. Mm. So echoing, so this something my father said, years ago that authors now echo. He said, there was no way, son. He said, look at the success that everybody in the time had. And to use a sports analogy, it wasn't enough ball for everybody.
See, let me ask you this. Why is it R&B or funk groups are always, like, the singer is always, hey, so when you gonna do a solo record? But then you got people like the Rolling Stones who are talented. All of them are talented. They still kicking.
That's you know what? Because that's a point that I covered, but I didn't cover that way that you asked it. So the answer I have is I'm not quite sure, but you are right that what happens with R&B and funk groups is that they don't get the autonomy where the lead singer or somebody can go do a solo project
and come back.
Where Mick has done a solo project. Right.
Keith has done a solo Charlie Watts, all of them.
For whatever reason, you're right, and that's a point that needs to be discussed. Why is it that the African American R&B and funk bands tend not to get the same? And I don't know if it's external or internal. I want to be really clear. I don't know if it's externally, we as the fans won't tolerate it, or if it's the ego thing, because Lionel Richie has been on record that he never wanted to leave the Commodores. What happened with the Commodores was that the rest of the Commodores were sick of the love of the ballads becoming the face of the group. And the Commodores wanted to be a funk band. And they got tired of, and so he got kind of pushed out, and then all those other things began happening. I even think that if you look at the kind of Michael Jackson leaving the Jackson 5 kind of thing, I think that, he probably would have been amenable for a reunion every 7 years or so. But I think that you raise an issue that I've always talked about, the machine destroying the black groups. Mm-hmm. But I never looked at it from the standpoint of, but I think I'll end on this. I think that's another example that the humanity of black people has never been seen as widely as the humanity of white people. That is, white artists, even white artists who are based on black art, get to have a wider array of humanity than the black people who created this black art that we tend to want to keep in a box simply because if you are black, you got to be one thing, right? Think about Jamie Foxx saying that they didn't want him to be both a comic and an actor and a singer. Like the day, I really do. I think that we're trying to get back to the days of what's my man? I just did the thing on him who I love so much. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Sammy Davis Jr. Right? Like Sammy Davis Jr. was singer, dancer. People forget Sammy Davis Jr. played 4 instruments. So he was singer, dancer, multi-instrumentalist, comic. He was all those things that in a very commodified arts industry, black people have never been allowed. Say what you want about. Again, I'm gonna be transparent here. I'm the only person that's got all three of Eddie Murphy's music albums. I know that. I know nobody else here has all 3 of Eddie Murphy's.
Yeah, but you alone with that one.
But I will argue that I will take 10 of songs, Eddie Murphy songs, and if I took his name off those songs, they would have been #1 R&B hits. And if they simply weren't R&B hits because they had Eddie Murphy's name on them, and that is because we limit black artists the way. I tell you what, go listen to the Eddie Murphy album that has "Put Your Mouth on Me." Put your mouth off that album. I guarantee you this. That album has 3 ballads that if those ballads would have been sung by anybody else, they are top 10 R&B albums. I said up.
Well, man, so you know, Stokely from Mint Condition brought up an interesting point. He said when he was in Mint Condition, people kept asking him, okay, when's your solo album coming? Then when he started doing solo records, people like, okay, when you going back to Mint Condition?
Yep. Yep.
You know, and so it's
that's a good question though. Can the band support? Can the band tolerate that? Can the R&B band tolerate that? Can the R&B audience tolerate that? Can the R&B A&R tolerate that? Because it's very different for black groups. Like Mick Jagger has released, I don't know how many, but definitely more than 2 solo albums. Keith Richards has, I believe, released a solo album. But what I'm getting to the point is it's never been Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's never been Freddie Mercury and Queen. Right? But for us, as soon as we saw El DeBarge and DeBarge, we knew it was a wrap.
That is true. That is true.
Wait a minute. I'm David Ruffin, and these are the Temptations.
Thank you. The more stay in the time, it's a wrap.
Yeah, that is true.
I thought you were going to go another place. Is it more financially difficult for the R&B funk bands? Because
the number of members?
Not only number of members, the money that their core audience has to spend. Because let's look at it this way, and y'all correct me if I may be off on a different tangent. For many years, like let's go back to the beginning of popular music. Let's go back to the 20s and the beginning of records and all of that. From the 20s to the 50s, black artists were told you can't make an album, you can only make singles because your audience can't afford albums. And so if you look at it from a financial standpoint, I wonder how much of that factored into that when the face of the black group goes solo, does their core audience have the money to support both the individual artist and this group in the way that, say, the Stones would be? Because, and again, I don't know if that's the case. I'm just wondering how much that also figured into.
Well, there is an incident where that has been supported. Rufus and Shaka Khan. When Shaka
left.
Have
one better.
Oh, okay. Like when Shaka left, she did her solo thing, and then came back. It was Shaka Khan featuring Rufus. People still bought into it. People didn't support. The support wasn't as great for just Rufus by themselves. I don't think. I don't think those albums did well, but I know that there was an instance where when she left and came back, people supported it, and even still now, like, you know, if there's a Rufus and Shaka tour or show, people are like, oh yes, I'm going to see that.
Right.
You know, I don't know what you got, Arthur. You said you had something better.
Yeah, and it's not a direct comparison to Seeley's example, but in the R&B space, I think the best example of being able to walk and chew gum would be Bobby Brown and New Edition. When Bobby left, the Don't Be Cruel album, which was his second, and the Any Heartbreak album were both very strong performers. When the tour happened, Bobby opened, then I'll Be Sure, then New Edition as the headliner. Having gone to two of those shows, Bobby was just as appreciated as New Edition was. The only difference being that, you know, not everybody necessarily showed up for the opening act, so New Edition just had the greater audience. But Bobby came back to New Edition, and they did an album with Bobby and Johnny Gill, and I think that was probably the best example of how a charismatic personality of a group can leave and then still have a place to come home to, but the source group that he left still performs well.
Okay, key words you said there. You said group and not band. Because, like, for instance, in Mint Condition, Stokely's the only vocalist. Because you got the keyboard player, you got the guitar player, you got the bassist, you got the drummer, you got this. In New Edition, you had 3 singers.
But here's my only pushback.
BBD, yeah.
Here's my only pushback, though. Was it sustained financially with the perpetual release of albums? That is, after Bobby's album and Any Heartbreak, BBD's second album didn't do anything.
Well, their second album, but their first one did.
Yeah. None of their second albums did anything.
None of their second albums. Now, their second album, probably, you know, the question could be like, was it bad producing? Was it bad? You know, that gets into that. But how much of it was it bad, just bad art, or how much was it was spread too thin and people just, like, it wasn't, other than one album, other than one solo album, we don't have it where they could do multiple solo albums and those multiple solo albums do well and the group album do well as well.
I would say this. I think as an audience, we support our people, whether they're with the unit and then their first initial outing by themselves. I think initially, in that particular instance, with New Edition and them, after each one did a second album and they didn't do well, people got to the point where they're like, okay, we want to see y'all back together.
Okay.
Like that was consensus. I think that's a consensus even with like Rufus and Shaka Khan. Even though she had some great success solo-wise, people were still like, we want to see you with them again at some point. Even with Lionel Richie and say the Commodores, there are still people who want to see him, you know what I'm saying, back with the Commodores again. And if they ever made that happen, it would be phenomenal because people would flock to see that because people want to see that. So, you know, I think there's a part where, like, you know, like we will support. I mean, even in the Prince community, when Jesse and them left, Morris, all them, like I know a lot of, you know, Prince fans bought those albums because they supported, like, you know, in the community. Now, some of us stayed on board and bought the second and the third ones and so on and so forth, you know, and some of them weren't as great, like Morris's second album, outside of Fishnet and Love is a Game. You could kind of go to sleep on it, maybe, perhaps.
Right.
But for the most part, you know, we supported, and even still, even with that, it was still like, I just remember, like, when Fishnet drops, and it was like, oh, it's almost a mini time reunion because Jam and Lewis did it, and they're in the video, and Jelly Bean is there. Jesse was the only one missing because he was sick the day of the video shoot or something. You know what I'm saying? So it's still that like we want to see them. You know, like, we'll check you out doing your solo thing, but what we want to see is this back together again. And so I think people will still, I think with New Edition in say that instance, enough time had passed where people were like, all right, you know, we want to see y'all back together.
And I'll just end with, since New Edition is my wife's favorite group, I agree with Arthur. When my wife watches this, my wife will watch this, and baby, I agree with Arthur. So
I just think that, and I mean, I'm agreeing with you, Ricky, because I'm one that wants to see them back together. But it's like, to be totally honest, part of me wants to see them back together because it ties to my fandom and the magic that was happening when they were, at their height. To try to get a more modern context to this, with Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay, I a prime example.
It was greater than the sum of its parts, right? So
Tony
is probably the most consistent performer out of Wu-Tang Clan.
Method Man over Method Man.
I got 3 Ghostface albums. You give me 2 Method Man albums. Like, okay, but that's a separate argument.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, okay. I mean, okay, say yeah. 2020 is probably the strongest candidate to say that them coming back together and actually doing new music. It doesn't have to sound like,
93.
Yeah, it doesn't have to sound like
Sons of Soul,
Anniversary, or Sons of Soul, or even the Revival. You know what I mean? But you just feel that the magic is still there.
Well, their tour showed that. I mean, because they were like getting rave reviews everywhere.
But did they play new music?
Where do we?
Was there like a new Tony song that was okay?
No,
I don't know. That's really a question. I didn't get tickets.
Where do we put the Parliament Funkadelic universe in this discussion?
Man, to me, that's a Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's where it's like. Well, in the Parliament Funkadelic case, it's more than just 2 people. But I'm just going to say that's like George and Bootsy.
Right.
Yeah, like if you saw George and Bootsy on stage, and then if you knew Bernie Worrell was there, like, so you knew some magic was about to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's like if you don't see the key people, it's not really a fill in the blank show. If Bernie Worrell, rest his soul, is not present, then it's only going to be so good. I mean, I saw the time open up one of the Musicology tour shows, and because there was no Jesse or Terry or Jimmy, it was. I mean, they did the best they could. But it wasn't.
Okay. Okay. Don't hold back, Arthur. Don't hold back. Come on, D'Angelo, what you got?
For me, it would be Fishbone. So Fishbone's original drummer, Fish, has never returned. Almost all the original Fishbone members have returned. And I don't know what went down, but Fish ain't coming back, it seems like. And to see Fish.
You got to get Jody White energy, dude.
I don't know. But that to me would be my analogy, because they're just like amazing live. And that goes back to the beginning of the conversation, where I don't think of Fishbone as Angelo and Fishbone. I think of Fishbone as the clan, the posse.
Fishbone.
Yes. And I had something else, but I just lost it.
I know they have a phenomenal documentary. That documentary.
That documentary actually is really sad. It's a really great documentary, but it's something that you should definitely see. So I thought about that. And then, like, for me also, 24/7 Spies. I'd be like, I'm in this like rock thing. If I could see the original unit of 24/7 with the original singer, but then they got a different singer and all of that, it kept changing. And then like the drummer left. And so, yeah. So for me, that would be really fantastic. I got it. So for me, Jamiroquai is a band. It's not JK, who is the lead singer. And when Stuart Zender, who is the original bass player, left, Jamiroquai, I didn't like them as much. And it got in each subsequent album, it got popular and popular. And now Toby, who is the amazing keyboardist for Jamiroquai, has passed. So you will never, ever get the original Jamiroquai because I don't think Stuart would ever play with JK again. I could be wrong. That would be interesting. But now that Toby's passed, you will never get the original Jamiroquai. So those are my...
Yeah, that's a whew. Yeah.
That's my...
It's kind of like the brand new heavies with like the Dear Davenport and then their keyboard player, Jan. It's only 2 original members there, and so you're kind of like, yeah, I'll see him, but then you're kind of like, it's missing that magic, like Arthur said. You're just kind of like, it's something about when you get the 4 originals. Same thing with Jamiroquai. I agree with you on that, Dan. So that's...
Yeah, it was never the same. Once
I'm not gonna open up this can of worms, and I like to say I think everybody should. Everybody, you know, we all have our opinions. I know mine is not the most popular. I'll just say to Christopher Tracy, I disagree with you 100%. Condensate is a damn good record. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. Condensate is a damn good record. I ain't saying it's a great record. I ain't saying it's an innovative record. I ain't saying that. I put on Condensate. It's a damn good record. And I was just talking about telling somebody there are 2 ballads that I love. What is it? Lifestyle and it's right, Faithful. I think that Morris's vocal performances on Lifestyle and Faithful are probably the only thing I would say that's better than that is I Don't Want to Leave You. I'll just say that I Don't Want to Leave You is probably the only ballad vocal that's better than Lifestyle and Faithful. I end with that.
You know, and there was a comment that D'Angelo just put up about, hey, you know, Condensate, it just wasn't good without Prince's involvement. And I think that was the problem that I had with the album at a base level. But on more of a nerdy level, it was like, okay, this is really the first time album that we've heard. In other words, because Jam and Lewis produced it, right?
Yep.
With Morris or however that went. So in other words, it's like what we know as the time sound was sculpted by Prince and Morris. So now we have a time sound that's sculpted by Flight Time and presumably, you know, Morris's input. So that's what you get. And so we have to evaluate it
from that standpoint.
Seeley likely has done for what it is, but it's difficult for the majority. No,
right.
It's difficult for me because it's not sculpted around what I'm referring to as the magic of before.
Right.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So we need to transition to Sugar Walls because I'm sure Kim is going to give me a time check. Technically, we're 2 minutes to the hour. If anybody needs to leave, please leave. But I do want to make sure we finish with Sugar Walls, and I'll do the reading. And I won't read this whole thing because it's super long. So this is the reason why you need to get the book, because I'm not going to read this entire chapter about Sugar Walls, and everybody needs to read about Sugar Walls. All right. So Sugar Walls, Friday, January 20th, listed as new song, basic tracking, Sunset Sound Studio 2, 6:30 p.m. to 2 a.m. Producer Prince, although Morris Day was listed because, again, he was in time mode. Artist Prince, although the time was listed, again, he was in time mode. Engineer blank, assistant engineer Peggy McCreary. I'm going to skip the quote. It's Lisa's. And I'm going to start with the first paragraph. Prince had been extremely busy, but according to those around him, he was also looking to expand his influence whenever possible. When pop artist Sheena Easton asked him for a track, he saw it as another chance to get his music circulating. Prince wrote and offered songs to whoever it was that wanted one, recalls Peggy McCreary. Sheena Easton did Sugar Walls. It was a song he was working on. This is key. It was a song he was working on. So I guess he didn't write it specifically for Sheena. That's how I'm interpreting this. And she asked for something, and he said, here. That is kind of the way he did things. And then I'm going to skip down all the way to the bottom of page 239. So I'm skipping like 4 paragraphs on future collaborations with Easton, such as in 1985 with the track Eternity. He would pull something off the shelf, but this first request was different. Prince actually recorded a new song from scratch from Sheena, which actually negates the earlier quote from Peggy, which that's what I want to have some clarity on. Like, did he pull this off? Was he already working on this, or did he make this from scratch for Sheena? But anyway, Sugar Walls was done for Sheena Easton, explains Susan Rogers. It was never intended for him. It was written after he'd met her. She asked for a song, and he wrote that for her. Now, this is Susan Rogers talking. The previous quote was from Peggy McCreary, who was there. So I would take Peggy's quote personally over Susan's in this regard and go with he was already working on this, but I could be wrong. The instrumentation of the track was sparse and keyboard heavy, containing more or less the same melody as the synth line to his unreleased song Possessed. Now, this goes back way to earlier, a couple hours ago when someone put in the chat, it was Stone Freak actually, that it sounded like Sugar Walls is in Purple Rain. And I think Kim or somebody responded that you're probably talking about Possessed because of this lead line that's very similar. Prince quickly wrote the lyrics and recorded his temp vocals as he always did, with the microphone dangling over the mixing board. Prince also did a pass with Jill Jones on lead vocals. And do you know what I want to hear? This version. Now, this goes back to 2 hours ago when I said I listened to the red mix of this song and I could have sworn I heard Jill Jones. So this just confirmed that that was definitely Jill giggling. And then there was also some spoken word stuff that was Jill. I want
crowd noise for D'Angelo.
Yes. I want this. This is what I want. Take that out of the vault. All right. The 7.5-hour session wrapped up at 2 a.m. and the master 2-inch tape was sent over to Sound Factory for Easton's vocal. Easton recalled her vocal session, which took place later that weekend. David Leonard said, Prince sent over a track for you. We saw you on the Tonight Show the night before. And Prince said, yeah, I got to write something for that girl. And he sent over Sugar Walls. And it was one of those things where it was like, here it is. If you want to do it, here's my number. Long story short, she continued, I recorded it on Super Bowl Sunday. Prince was recording at Sunset Sound at the same time, but it's unclear if he left to attend Easton's vocal sessions at Sound Factory. There are conflicting reports about whether he dropped in on her, but nothing could be confirmed. According to Easton, Prince obviously enjoyed collaborating with her, giving her Eternity, co-writing, I totally forgot about this, co-writing La La La, He, and teaming up with her on so many tracks, including You Got the Look, One on One, Cool Love, and the song that I will not state. And the release, Come Back to Me.
Come on, D'Angelo.
I don't want to get the conversation started. When we worked in the studio, we got
I'm pantomiming the song.
Yes, I know you guys are out there, but I'm just not one of them, and I never will be. Okay. So when we worked in the studio, we got along really well. Remember, Easton, we cracked each other up. We made each other laugh. He really liked my voice and thought we should do more stuff. Okay. Not everyone was happy, but the number went to Easton. Sugar Walls was supposed to be my song, remembers Joe Jones. When he told me, I remember I was sitting in the bed and I was just like, what? Really? You took me out last night to be able to break this news to me this morning. We had some words about it. That's all I'm going to say.
Boy, that's cold, boy. Boy, that's some Goldie from the Mac type stuff. But it's cold, boy. He took her out, kicked it, waited till the next morning. Oh, by the way, I'm giving that song to somebody else.
Not cool. All right. Status. Walls. 3 minutes and 59 seconds was released on Sheena Easton's A Private Heaven album. It was entirely Prince's original version, but with his vocals replaced by Easton. Although this ode to a vagina was written and recorded by Prince, it was credited to Alexander Nevermind, his first one-use only pseudonym. The song eventually became infamous as number 2 on the Parents Music Resource Center's Filthy 15, a list of tracks that deserve parental labeling. The only song higher on that list was Darling Nikki, another Prince tune. Prince later used elements from Sugar Walls on the extended remix of Hot Thing, which was released in 1987.
Hey, side note on this real quick. I just remembered when I was in band, I know we got the sheet music for this song. And I remember we were all excited about playing it, and our band director trying to argue with us that Prince didn't write it. He was like, man, some guy named Alexander Nevermind wrote this. We were like, no, it's really Prince. And he just would not believe it. He like held the sheet music up in front of us. See, it says Alexander Nevermind right here. And we were like trying to tell him like that's not the case. But just to show you how popular that song was, bands played it.
That's another example. When I was 12 years old, and I remember grown people are stupid. That's what I remember. I'm actually working on a short story that says grown people are stupid.
D'Angelo, I have to leave the group. I really appreciate you inviting me up to.
It's good seeing you, brother.
Thank you for coming.
It's always good seeing you both.
Always good to see you.
Good seeing you, brother. Stay safe.
Always good to be in your presence.
Yes.
Yes, we played Sugar Walls, Rhonda. It was wild. Middle school at that. Wasn't even high school. It was middle school band. It was middle school.
Crazy. I'm going to remove you from the stage, Arthur.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on by.
Take care, man.
And Kirsten saying, what was the school band doing performing Sugar Walls?
And wait, it was in Birmingham, Alabama, in the South. We played that.
Wow.
You know what that means? That means that the band director didn't know what that song was about.
Oh no, he was a brother. Matter of fact, he JSU alum.
I will say, I guarantee you, he didn't know what that song was about.
He probably didn't. He probably didn't. But I do remember him being JSU alum, and I remember we played it. And like I remember when it came in, like everyone being like really excited because it was a popular song. You know, not one of the little tunes out of the books type deal. And so the even the students who weren't at the level where they could play it were trying to learn it. You know what I'm saying? We were trying to step their game up. And I just remember like being excited, like, wow, yeah, we go play this. So now I don't recall if we played it for an assembly or anything, but I do remember learning it though. Yeah. And
I would take just one small privilege since Brother Wyatt mentioned JSU alum. If you guys out there like the Outkast song, if y'all like the Outkast song Morris Brown, the Outkast song Morris Brown was written by a guy whose last name is Gaines, and he is a Jackson State graduate, and he is responsible for about 30 to 50% of all of the arrangements that most HBCU bands play. So if you love HBCU band culture, the guy who co-wrote Outkast's song Morris Brown is one of the greatest band composers, arrangers. And I just have to, as a Jackson State graduate, I just have to say that since Ricky gave me that invite, that his band director in middle school was a Jackson State graduate. That's it, I'll shut up. And we can talk about Sugar Walls now, because I can't wait to hear D'Angelo talk about Sugar Walls.
Well, for me, Sugar Walls, again, it was never about the lyrics. It was really about the music. And for me, it's one of Prince's, I think it's a very strong beginning, meaning like it's instantaneously, you're dropped in the groove and it's infectious. I get a similar feel when I listen to Sex Shooter, but I really get that same feel when I listen to Hot Thing. So it's really interesting that he pulled elements of Sugar Walls into, some of the Hot Thing remix, because I remember when Hot Thing came out, like again, in real time, I'm talking about real time. So I was 17 years old. And I wasn't yet into electronica as I am now. And I was raised by Prince, who was, real instruments by, real musicians, real instruments. And even though obviously he had been using drum machines and all that, I just found Hot Thing, when I listened to it on the record, too repetitive. However, when I saw the First Avenue performance, for those of you, who are on Value, My Name is Prince.
Mm-hmm.
I heard Hot Thing in context of that live show. And I don't know if you remember this. They just let the beat of Hot Thing play by itself, just the beat. And it went on like for a long time. That was like when the bells went off. I was it was like, I get it. But in real time, I was immediately just mesmerized by the music of Sugar Walls. And I also think that Sheena's vocal delivery on the song is actually pretty brilliant. Especially, and I don't know, it's a special song, and we actually don't talk about Sugar Walls that much. I don't hear most people talk about Sugar Walls. And so one of the things that I love about doing this weekly book club is like pulling out songs that I haven't listened to in a while, because I hadn't listened to that one. And
it's been a while for me too.
Yeah, and when I put that on, I was like, oh my God, like I remember, yes, Kim is very techno. I think it's one of Prince's most underrated tracks because I like the sparseness of it. And then like that bass keyboard, that you know that part I'm talking about. Like if you listen to the song, you will understand the brilliance of Prince, because he's able to use silence and integrate key notes at key pivotal moments to turn it into something amazing. So I'll just say that.
Yeah. Again, we'll come back to what we were saying. I think that for a lot of people at the time, you got to remember, we're talking about this in real time. It was just difficult for a lot of people to get their brains around Sheena Easton being with Prince, right? It was just because, again, I keep bringing it up. I don't think how many people understand how pop. Let me say this, and I'm gonna get in trouble again. The only person whiter than Sheena Easton at the time was Olivia Newton-John. And I mean it, and I don't mean that as a diss, but the two whitest women in popular music at the time, Olivia Newton-John, and what is she doing? She's got her great music career, and then she's making movies like Grease. We've already talked about how Grease was, they took all of the ratchet stuff from the play and made a really tame movie. So Olivia Newton-John and Sheena Easton are kind of like the faces of white pop. And here then you have her from My Baby Takes the Morning Train to Sugar Walls, and then a couple of years later, you got The Look. And let me be honest. I kind of wanted to hate on her too, but by the time we get to You Got The Look, like there was nothing I could say. Like the only thing I could say was I wish somebody else would have sang that with him. But You Got To Look is just a hell of a fine song. I don't mean a hell of a song. It's a hell of a fine song. It's go ahead.
All right. So for me, Sugar Walls is the masterpiece of Prince. And I actually love the.
She'll be back.
Well, you know what? I just remember at that time, Prince was hot as fish grease.
Yep.
Basically, my finger went like I was trying to, like, sometimes I don't know, my laptop just acts weird. There's this comment from Steve here that says Sugar Walls and Minnesota sound personified. I'll shut up. And for me, it was quintessentially Prince at that particular moment. If you listen to it, and I thought they worked well together, like I just said. However, when you get to You Got The Look on the masterpiece, Sign of the Times, there were two other ladies in the video, one being Sheila E. dancing around, and the other being Bonnie Boyer.
Yep.
Have these, and I've always loved how Sheila E.'s voice complemented Prince's. I love Sheila's tone. And every single time I see that video, I shake my head and I go, why? Why is Sheena singing this song? Sheena singing this song when you got Sheila in the song. And if you don't want to use Sheila, you got Bonnie Boyer. So for me, I've never liked Sheena's vocals on You Got the Look because I always thought of Levi, Bonnie, and Sheila as a holy trinity of background vocals, which is great that Arthur's not here because he does not like that holy trinity, but is my holy trinity of background vocals. So I don't like the You Got the Look.
Well, I'm going to tell you why, D'Angela. I know Michael Dean in here. This is a business.
There you go.
Sheena Easton had a name. She had a name, international market.
and also, let's be clear. Simon Times is coming after Love Sexy. Prince is as Prince. I'm sorry, before it's coming off of Parade.
Mm-hmm.
So Simon Times is coming off of Parade. Prince was known to keep one eye on the charts, so it's clear that he's making a little bit more of an effort. So, but I'll also say this: I agree with you 100%. I guess because I've always been able to hear the song and not think about them, if that makes sense. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I was like you. There were so many people that I thought just soulfully would have been better on the song. But once I just took the song on its face and then listened to how other people were reacting to the song, I also think that we forget how big a hit You Got the Look was on Black radio.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it had that kind of pop appeal, because You Got the Look, it didn't quite make it, but You Got the Look kind of came up to that where You Got the Look was like one of them sayings that people was gonna be saying. Like, and it had the phrase in there, slamming, which that was a phrase that people were saying. So You Got to Look almost became one of those cultural songs where people were quoting the title. But I'm with you 100%. I was just only saying that was the song that made me kind of give it up to Sheena Easton when I didn't really want to give it up to Sheena Easton. That's all I'm saying.
Plus in '84, like when this song was being released, Prince was hot as fist grease. Like he was,
yeah.
He was hot as, and it didn't matter, because part of the song coming out was a song written by Prince. Like that's what I remember people saying. That's what I remember DJs saying. Like, oh yeah, Prince wrote this song. So like people naturally were, because they were gobbling up stuff, they gravitated towards it. So, would it have had the same effect had they not led with that? Hey, yeah, Prince wrote this song for her, or had it been written, or had it come out not as Purple Rain was in momentum and all of that, but come out either before or after, would it have had the same effect? I don't know, but I know that helped her and that helped him too, because again, people were gobbling up stuff and they were trying to gobble up everything that came out. I mean, everything, if from 12 inches to albums to magazine. I mean, like everything was being gobbled up. It wasn't like it is now where you have all these different avenues for things. It was like, okay, when's the next 12 inch coming out? Okay, until then, oh, Sugar Walls, he wrote this, great, I'm gonna buy that.
Right.
And people bought it. So but yeah, he was smoking, man, when this song came out. I just remember the video, and she had two videos that looked the same, and this one was one of them. And I remember thinking like, wow, man, her label must have gave her a real slim budget. They said we filmed 2 videos in one day. You just changed clothes and everything stayed the same. It's just that this song was different. But yeah, it's been a while since I've heard it, but it was a different take on, say, the Minneapolis sound, which again, you had, I think at the time when this song came out, 3 different versions. You had Purple Rain, Ice Cream Castles, and Sheila's album. So now you got something else. So people were gobbling. Yeah, and Apple. So I mean, again, it was like, okay, he's doing something else. Well, yeah, let me grab this and see. So
right.
All right, so we're getting to the end, and I have several more slides I want to go through with a quickness because of the time check, because we're running over. So this week, actually up until 1984 so far, We have 8 songs total and 18 studio visits. And these are the songs that he has written. And again, if you go to the book club website and click on this slide, it will take you to a database that I am creating so that you can interact with it. And I want to take a very short film break to say, please go see the Book of Clarence. It is an amazing film. Again, I think it's important to support the art you want to see more of. I love me some Lakeith. I love Omar Sy. I love RJ. It's a brilliant film. It looks fantastic, just the cinematography alone. So I'll just say that. And then in terms of the Purple World, I put out. Did you want to say something, Ricky?
No, I was going to say Atlanta Stand Up. Andre 3000.
Andre 3000.
Atlanta Stand Up.
Yes, yes. So I put out my newsletter about all my favorite things from last year, and I definitely love Andre's album. But I'm actually sharing this, and if you click on the link, it'll take you there, because I include in it several mono neon, I call them, I don't know, short snippets that he do when he takes a video and puts music to it. And I was absolutely just obsessed with the one that he did with Andre, but I've been listening to these clips ever since when he started, when Cardi B came out. He's been doing this for a very long, long time. And I think they're brilliant. And some of the songs really stand up on their own. And I say all that to say, and I have on my mono neon t-shirt because I got to see him for the first time this week at the Winter Jazz Fest.
Okay.
So I want to give a shout out to Mono Neon and how incredible he was.
Crowd knew us for D'Angelo.
Yes, yes. So this was like one of my bucket lists was to see Mono Neon. So I was able to see Mono Neon. And he also had Georgia Ann Muldrow, who's also another one of my favorites on the set list. So I wanted to just quickly say that. And then last night, St. Paul did a restream of the show, the live show that he did in Minneapolis on Friday, January 12th. But last night he did like the watch party, and it features our birthday guy, Mr. Eric Leeds. And also it has obviously St. Paul, Ricky Peterson, Mike Scott, Stokely, Dr. Fink, just a lot of people. So if you want to check that out, again, if you go to the slideshow, you can click on it and take you to the YouTube. But obviously you can do your Googles, as Michael Dean would say, and we miss Michael. And speaking of Michael has released a new podcast called A 21st Century Purple Rain that you can watch. He had Miss India on, and you can watch and hear more about that. We touched upon it last week for a little bit. And again,
that's a great discussion, by the way. They have a great discussion on that. So
yeah, definitely. So definitely check that out. And we miss you, Michael, as always. And then just remind everyone, April is going to be here in no time. I can't believe we're almost at the end of January already. So April's going to be here in no time, and we're going to have our Erotic City 40 Symposium at NYU, celebrating those 4 albums that Ricky just named. This is the one that I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm looking forward to that one, but I've been waiting for Come 30 to celebrate Come for years now. Kind of remember, I don't know, Ricky, when we were doing the Grown Folks Music podcast and how we couldn't wait to Johnson Psychedelica.
Yep.
This is the one. Like, I've been waiting for this Come Symposium, so okay. I'm super excited about it, and I'm so excited. I know that Kanisa is, but I was so happy to see Kim repping her Come shirt and basically having, that, ready for Come 30 as well. So I was so happy to see that somebody else is just as excited. And I decided that I'm going to move this after salon for DPS DVC, Diamonds and Pearl Super Deluxe, to a year later, because I got so much going on, but also because I haven't had time to really do a deep dive myself. I'm sure all of you haven't really done a deep dive, and it would be nice to come back a year later. And then you have the accompanying playlist of all the songs that we talked about, including both the dance mixes for Sugar Walls, as well as the original Sugar Walls, as well as all the other songs on here. And next week we are going to be reading. We're not going to be reading as much as we did this week. So we only have 4 pages, and it's 241 to 245 in the expanded edition. So I just want to say thank you I'm hearing myself repeat again, but I don't know. Okay. I want to say thank you both to Liegh and for Ricky for answering my last minute call. So you guys are true friends, and I really, really appreciate it. And also I appreciate Arthur coming on, just like, do you mind coming on? And he was like, sure. So we miss Michael Dean, as we always do, but I got friends. So it's so great to have friends, and I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. So who's going to take us out, Ricky or Liegh?
Let Ricky take us out.
Like they used to say in church, while we absent, may the Lord watch between me and thee. Everybody be safe, stay warm. All my people that snowed in. And until then, put the groove on the bus. Ain't nothing but a muffin, got a whole lot of butter to go.
That's right.